Welcome to the Power of Design podcast, where we have inspiring conversations that explore the intersection of architecture, construction, and real estate, so we can understand the dynamics and trends that shape an exciting and powerful built environment. This is your host, Jack Osa. Today on the show, I'll be talking to my friend Amber Brown. Amber is the Market President of Alfred Williams and Company in Charlotte, North Carolina. Alfred Williams and Company has evolved to become a leader in commercial furniture and interiors as the third largest Herman Miller Dealer in North America. Amber is a sales and marketing executive with vast experience in business development and a passion for the creative process and its ability to solve problems. Today, we talk about the commercial furniture industry, learning and bridging multiple industries, and the key elements to building a strong team. This is my conversation with Amber Brown. Amber, welcome to the Power of Design podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you.
Amber, you have an interesting career spanning communications, sales, design, and business strategy. What gives you the ability and capacity to explore and succeed at multiple industries?
Oh, that's a great, that's a long question and probably a long answer. So I'll try to condense it down. It's interesting. I started my career in the media business, and I was right out of college. I actually started during a recession. And so there weren't a lot of jobs out there. And I had an aunt who worked in television. And she said to me, if you can sell radio, you can sell anything. Good. And what I didn't realize is that she was absolutely correct, because radio is, they refer to it as theater of the mind. And you have to paint stories with words, and you have to be a really good storyteller. Sure. And because of that, you also have a product that expires immediately. It's air. Yeah. It's air. And so I learned a lot. I also found a way in that business to get into a lot of different industries and had to become a little bit of an expert in a lot of different things. And so I think that that's one of those things that has kind of helped me through the variety of careers. Yeah. And I kind of call it, I'll call it cocktail knowledge about a whole lot of things. Yes. So, if you go to a cocktail party and I need to have a conversation with an architect from Colombia, yeah, or if I need to talk to, a neurosurgeon, sure, you have to have at least a little bit of a knowledge and understanding. So all of those things in my career started way back when I started in the media business. And so
it's like communication, sales.
It is, yeah, and really learning about, and I think this is one of those things that has carried me for every role that I've ever had in my career, is just a general curiosity, yeah, about business and about people, yeah, and wanting to learn. And if you are curious and you never stop learning, then you're going to land on the right things for your clients. And that, to me, is one of the core things as a sales professional, is to never lose sight of the customer. Sure. And so in doing all those things in my career, it's really kind of helped me to hone my skills of understanding what the core customer wants. Yes. And never losing sight of that.
Sure. And you're also a great conversationalist.
Well, as are you, Jack.
Not really. Because you can just keep going.
I don't know. We were having I said earlier, I wish we were recording while we were prepping here, because we were deep into conversation.
Yes. Sometimes I'm like, man, this should be a podcast. I'm going to have to start turning on my recorder more
Absolutely.
Often. Yeah. Why don't you tell me more about how you started, not only in the business, but, where did you grow up, your family?
I grew up in Oklahoma, and my whole family is still in Oklahoma for the most part, or Texas. And my husband and I left. I actually moved to Charlotte when I was 23 years old, and I graduated from college, and but I'd spent my entire career in Oklahoma. I had never really been, I would say, outside of a bordering state of Oklahoma. And I remember, I had this opportunity that popped up around Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm like, God, that sounds awesome. Where is that? Yeah. And I thought, Charlotte's on the beach, right? And I opened up a map, and I'm like, oh no, it's not Charleston. It's Charlotte in the middle of North Carolina. But I think growing up in Oklahoma was it was a great place to grow up. I still have a fond memory of, there's a lot of very interesting things about the history of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
It's kind of a lot of mavericks, a lot of pioneers, a lot of big thinkers.
Yeah.
They go big or bust. And you and I have talked a lot about the kind of taking risk and being a futurist. And Oklahoma is primarily an oil and a cattle state.
Yeah.
And so all of those things that kind of come along with the nature of the oil business I grew up around, and learning that you do have to take risks sometimes to gain big, but also adapting, because I've watched that state adapt and grow and reinvent itself so many times, even in the 23 years that I lived there.
Yes.
But it's been interesting to watch that start to happen in Charlotte. And so I feel like there's this great energy that, kind of how I grew up in Oklahoma, and then seeing how Charlotte, and it's like, it's always very comfortable to me, because I think there's a lot of parallels, different ways they manifest themselves. But
yeah. Do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have a brother, and he is my younger brother, and he is still in Oklahoma. He is he's a principal for the high school that we grew up going to, where my mother was also a principal.
Wow.
So and I've got 3 nephews that live there, and then my husband, his family is also there as well. So we're a little bit of we're kind of the black sheep in that we left, and we moved here 23 years ago thinking, we'll see how it goes.
Yes.
And then why leave? This is such a great city.
Yeah.
We've never left.
So when you graduated high school, what was in your mind about the future? How did you decide what path to take?
Well, I always had a brain for marketing, and even when I was in high school and when I got into college, I like to be the person who would come up with the idea, and like, hey, let's play in the spring break, or hey, let's do something crazy. I served on a lot of committees and a lot of things in college that gave me some skills that really made it very, I would say, natural for me to go into the media business.
Yes.
And so that idea around, again, marketing and sales and thinking about what do the customers want, and I'll take that a little bit back to what is it that people want, and so kind of designing around experiences, and then actually that's one of the reasons I got into the media business is designing around experiences that make people happy, make them want to act. And so I got out of college, there were no jobs, and it kind of led me into the media business, and it was very natural for me. I had success early, and also, again, kind of back to that, because I was in a sales and business development role, and I found a niche inside of that was very foreign to a lot of other people in that industry, and I figured out how to create some revenue in a types of business that no one else in the industry, at least in Oklahoma when I started, was doing.
Sure.
And that's what brought me to Charlotte, is that doors opened quickly, and I seized the opportunity to take that, and I turned it into a career that out of the media business, I ended up in consulting, and I did business development consulting for 11 years. And again, that's back to taking those things that you learn along the way, and how do you build upon those and keep learning. And I ended up working with television and newspaper, and and then it became digital. And I remember sitting back, and you and I were talking about earlier about being futurist.
Yeah.
We've both done the Strength Finders. And when you're a futurist, and you can see, hey, this is what's coming, and this is what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the media business and starting to work with digital media, and thinking, this is going to be, and this was in 1994, thinking this is going to be big, and this is changing everything. And to see what has happened in the media business, that what used to be your large media outlets have now, a lot of which have become very skeletons of themselves from 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And now you have these large digital media platforms that have become huge.
Yes.
And that's really the preference on how so many of us now receive our information.
Oh, yeah. And the media business is all about influencing people. So what are the best mediums you have to influence that, and what are the channels available at that moment in time? So if it was radio, voice, and then you have television, now you're engaging, another sense, and then you have now social media. So it really, it's all about what's capturing the attention the most, and that's what's gonna get the biggest result, because you sell, the more attention you have, the more opportunities you have to sell your things or to communicate whatever you want to communicate.
And it's really given so many people, brands, just ideas, a platform that would have been so unattainable in the past.
Yeah.
And so when I was in consulting in that industry, or when I was consulting media, a lot of it was around just understanding business. And at the end of the day, people still need to sell goods and services, and they still need consumers, whatever that be, if it's a business to business or to consumer. Still need to reach those people, and you need action. But you have to be able to give them something that they actually want, and it works.
Yeah.
And so that's really where, when you think about how it's changed, all the changes in media have given so many people a platform that they didn't have. I mean, we were just talking about how excited we both are about the new iPhone.
Yes.
I mean, what can you do with that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of things wrapped up.
It used to be that if you have a small business, you couldn't really afford a TV ad or a commercial or something, big, one page in a newspaper. It was just out of reach just because of cost. Now it's for free. You get your phone and you have all these platforms. You create quality content and it's free.
And ideas happen faster.
Yeah.
Lots faster. So
yeah, that's what I'm doing the podcast. Like, I don't need to pay anybody. I just controlling my own message, and I have the platform, and I'm just doing it.
And you have great ideas.
Hopefully. And I get, and what I like about this is that I get the listeners that are going to listen to this are the ones that they like the content, they understand it, and they're aligned with my thinking.
Absolutely.
Everybody else is just a waste of time for us to be, it's like watching a bunch of commercials that they're not directed at you.
Right.
Now you have the choice to select what are the channels or information that you want to consume.
Absolutely.
Which is really nice.
So I watched a lot of change happen in that industry, and it was wonderful. I enjoyed it, and then along came another opportunity, and then also I had a family in between all of that. So lots of other doors started to open for me, and kind of led me into the industry that I'm in now.
Yes.
And it's a little bit of a joke because I remember talking about this with the person who runs our company, and the joke was, I thought, well, hey, wait a minute, I don't know anything about this.
Yes.
But I have to give, I've always thought when you have really good people who have good ideas, and then, can those people learn another industry? And again, going back to what I said earlier about, I love to learn about all things. So this has been a fascinating industry. I've been in it now for 7 years, and interesting because it's so vastly different. At least I thought that when I got in. Mm-hmm. And then when I got into it, I realized there's a lot of parallels to what I came out of that I didn't recognize completely at the time. I thought maybe, but I'm naive to think that they were so closely aligned. And then when I got into this industry, I quickly realized that it's complicated, but there's a lot of parallels to what I did before.
Okay, so why don't you explain to me what do you do today and a little bit more detail about the industry, how things work?
So I am the market president for Alfred Williams and Company, and we are in the contract furniture industry and also in interior construction. And I got into this industry. I've been in it for 7 years. And and really what we do, and we were talking about what is it that makes great spaces, and I think it's a combination of a lot of partners coming together. But the part that we play is all of the physical things that people work in every day, and it's way more complicated than I ever thought it would be. It was kind of a joke. It's like, oh, geez, how complicated can this be? Yes. Well, joke's on me. Way more complicated than I thought.
Yeah.
And I think bringing together kind of the vision and the brand of a company and trying to interpret that into the physical space is where people in your industry and people in our industry, I think, can make magical things happen along with all the other partners in a project.
Sure.
And so many companies right now, I think, are trying to differentiate themselves and to bring brand into their space and culture.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ingredients that go into making that happen. And I think so. What I think our role is we're the Herman Miller Dealer here in town, is to come up with really that right mix and listen to all the partners and listen to the companies that are trying to and learn and really help to bring that together with the rest of the team. Yeah,
and that's exactly why I started the podcast. Because there is no way just designers are gonna create that experience. There is no way just the GC is gonna create it. we need each other to create that full-on experience for the end user. We need the brokers, we need the project managers, we need somebody helping financing, somebody's gonna build it, somebody's gonna imagine it, somebody needs to do this. And it really takes a lot to align everybody.
It does.
We all have our own interest.
Absolutely.
And on understanding what that end experience is, we need each other. And I think in overall in the industry, even though we work together, we're still very separated and disjointed. Like, we talk in networking events or projects, but when you get to like real deep thinking, there is not a lot of interaction or collaboration, I think.
I agree. And I think when I think about what I've learned in the time that I've been in this industry, and again, bringing kind of those correlations back to what I did in the past, is I remember sitting down and we would sit with a customer and I can use consumer brands, or even, and some of the larger auto manufacturers were some of my customers, is we would sit down and we would talk about, hey, this is the customer that we're trying to appeal to. Yeah. This is the product. These are the things that we need to know. This is kind of where our business is moving. So the conversations were very different. So all the partners would sit at the table and they would say, now help us come up with the ideas and let's share together to come up with how we're going to get to that consumer, and we're going to give them something that's very engaging and bring value. And I think about the industry that we're in now, and it still feels very linear sometimes. Not always, but I would say a lot of times it feels very linear. So that, hey, we do this part first, and then and then we go find this partner, and then maybe we'll go find these two partners, and then so that instead of that kind of idea of the integrated project delivery, which I love that concept, and I like to read a lot about that. So we're all sitting at the table and everybody's saying, what are we trying to do for the customer? Yeah. And how do we do that together? And are we all just going to leave our egos and check them out the door and say, let's do that together, because that's who we're trying to serve. We're not trying to serve our own interest, or we're not trying to, play catch up. Sure. Because a lot of times I think that linear process creates not enough time to do the magical things that I think you could do.
Oh, yeah. So within your team, you have different kinds of, professionals and roles to make this happen. What are all those roles, and what do you think is the key ingredient to create a high-performance team within that environment?
So I think there's a lot of things that go into creating a high-performance team. I think that the people that you bring into the organization, more than the role, are important. So we have roles that are defined within, here's your job title, but we really spend a lot of time thinking about bringing people that are thinkers into the organization. Yes. And that's not an easy, it's a competitive job market that's out there. Yeah. And also trying to bring people who bring outside perspective. And when you bring people into the organization, you want to create a high-performing team, then you just can't have a whole lot of people that think the same. Sure. And I think you have to have a lot of people that really sometimes need to come from outside the industry. You've got to bring people in that, again, kind of going back to the conversation I was telling you about with our president, which is that you've got to have others that have perspective from other industries and from other life experience, and that they can bring that in. Yeah. So when we look at building a high performance team, and what we've tried to do here is to bring those types of individuals into the company, and I joke all the time that my role is to give them the resources that they need and to take away the roadblocks that are there for them. And and when you do that, and you hire good people, and you give them a vision, because I think to build a high-performing team, you also have to have leadership in a lot of places, and that can't just be me. I think leadership has to come from many in the organization. So we try to empower people to be the leader. You don't need to come ask me for permission. Yes. Go do it. And it's been a good formula for helping us to build a high-performing team. I would say also, when you build high-performing teams, a lot of times you have those individuals that sometimes are really hard to, they're like the racehorse that's ready to run. And so we like to have those people in a lot of different roles, because I think they push the limits of all of us to perform better. And you can't have a whole lot of those in your organization, but you need a few. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess you need balance. You
need balance.
You need somebody that likes doing detailed work, somebody who's going to be risk averse, somebody who's going to take a lot of chances, somebody who's crazy, and then can kind of balance that out, so you have a good mix of all those kinds of personalities. Are those that kind of people you're referring to? Can you grow those people within your team, or do you think that's something people have and you just need to find them?
So I think that there are seasons that people go through in their careers, and I will say also seasons of life, and there's also those pivotal moments where sometimes something goes off and somebody becomes that person.
Yes.
I think it takes recognition, and and I think part of when you're trying to find really good people, that we've all had those conversations with people where you say there's something about that person.
Yeah.
I don't quite know what it is, and I do this a lot when I just talk to people, especially trying to think about people that may fit on our team.
Yes.
Is I may have a conversation with someone for a role, again, and going back to sometimes the role doesn't fit what the skill set.
Yeah.
And so we and I will say there's something about that person, and I've had a couple people on our team that's happened. And I don't have something just right then, but I'll kind of keep having those conversations, and because I can see that thing that you're describing, which is do you have it, or can you grow it?
Yes.
And I see that kind of that raw, thing that you just need to fertilize a little bit, and then they're going to grow into this beautiful, thing.
Sure.
And so I try to find that, and then I also try to see, well, what's that going to look like? What's that timetable look like? And we've had some, and over the course of my career, I've had many people where you see that, cause sometimes it's just right in front of you, and you're like, got to hire that, got to have them, bring them on the team, and then you say grow, but they far exceed your expectations. Those are unicorns. I think finding people that you can grow as you grow, in your team, is a really positive thing. So
yes.
I think it exists at the core of someone.
Yeah.
You have to give people those opportunities along the way. It's up to them to rise to the occasion.
Sure.
And grow.
Yeah.
But I absolutely think you can grow if you've got the right good foundation to start with.
We'll be right back with more from the Power of Design podcast.
The Power of Design podcast is brought to you by OSA Studio, a multidisciplinary design firm focused on creating impactful experiences through the power of design. We partner with our clients to create buildings, interior spaces, brands, and strategies that help you deliver a successful project. As a minority-owned firm, we are committed to building a diverse platform of curious and driven design professionals so we can together pursue our full potential. For more information, please visit us at www.osastudio.com.
I think it's interesting that it's just a small percentage of people who become high performance. Mm-hmm. But I really do believe that every human being has the potential and the right to be a high performer.
I agree.
And I will blame most of the problem on the education system, the way we grow up, and we start, growing with all these, believing all these lies that just are like overimposed limitations, like, oh no, you can do that. No, you're not good at that. Oh no, you don't. No, just focus here.
Right.
So it's kind of like the more you limit yourself, then the more you're complying, then that's good. Mm. So when you're an adult, you're used to not trying for more. You're used to not exercise your potential. You're used to not to take risk. So
I think it's interesting being comfortable. And I would say that's one thing when you talk about can you find it versus can you grow it. Mm-hmm. In a high performer is that you really have to look and say, does this person want to change, and are they comfortable?
Yes.
Because people that are comfortable, that is a dangerous place.
Oh, sure. And
I'm never comfortable, by the way.
Yeah.
Ever. And that's just part of my nature. I'm comfortable in a lot of situations, But if you kind of raise to the 50,000 foot
Yeah.
piece of it, I've always got parts that I'm so incredibly uncomfortable. But the way that I deal with that is I learn, I seek information, I try to throw myself in it so that I can understand, then I'm comfortable.
Yes.
So when you're trying to find somebody that you want to be a high performer, if they're really, really comfortable, do they recognize that? Do they have an awareness of that? And are they willing to put themselves out there?
Yeah.
And when I try to find people to bring into the organization, or any of the things I've ever done in the past, is I want to find people who say, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure I can figure it out.
Sure.
And I'm willing to take that risk. And also I've got to recognize that they have what it takes to do that. But I'll absolutely give people a chance if they'll put themselves out there.
Yeah, I think everybody deserves the chance. It's just that the leader is now taking on this responsibility that it wasn't her responsibility, to, help the pro. Because at the end of the day, it's like believing in yourself, believing that you're capable. Like that should have been done years ago.
Right.
Sometimes it's very late, and there is a lot of work that needs to be done. But if we start fixing that early on,
right.
With kids, with teenagers, helping people understand just basic limitations that are not real, I think finding those high performance won't be a problem.
So it's interesting. T. Boone Pickens, I don't know if you know who T. Boone Pickens is, but anyway, T. Boone Pickens is an Oklahoman, and he passed away. He's a very, very well-known, very wealthy man, and lived in Texas for a good part of his life. But I was reading an article about him with his passing, and he made a comment about, and he was very successful. And again, going back to I'm from Oklahoma, you're a boom or bust. This was a guy that boomed and busted, and then of course was incredibly successful late in life.
Yes.
And he made a comment about not being as productive, and he felt like he got more done after he turned 65. And so, back to the pre-programmed things that you have and you hear, being willing to go, that's not me. I'm going to scrap that. And it's never too late to keep learning and keep doing and keep taking on things. And that's, for me, that's what it takes to be a high performer.
Yes.
Is you've got to always be growing and never have all the answers.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
I never have all the answers.
I agree with that. So talking about the commercial furniture industry, especially local here in Charlotte, there are different competitors, Alfred Williams have. What do you think is the unique differentiator Alfred Williams brings to the marketplace?
Good question. So this is a highly competitive industry, and I think there's a lot of differentiators that are very, nuances for all of us. I think if I have to kind of think about Alfred Williams, and one of those things that's really, I think, at the core of who we are is that we're incredibly authentic to who we are, and we don't try to be anything else. I think we're, the brand, the company is 152 years old, and you're 152 years old for a lot of reasons. And I think one of again, I've only been with the company for 7 years, but Blunt Williams, who is the owner of our company, is the 5th generation Williams to run the company.
Yeah.
And, incredibly visionary. And he grew up in the industry, or I guess, with his family being in the industry. And one thing about Blunt is that, he's very true and authentic to who he is. And he does a great job of portraying that brand to all of the employees. And we put our people first, and we invest heavily in our people. And at the end of the day, we all work really hard. This is a really hard industry, and it's incredibly competitive. And we've got to take care of the people that you got to have some fun, and you have to work with those people. So be that kind of authenticity about who we are. But to be 152 years old, you had to adapt a lot.
Yeah.
That was 1867 when the company started.
Wow.
So from 1867 to 2019, you had to make some adjustments and adapt.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's another true differentiator is the ability to adapt as the markets change, and the industry is going through a lot of change right now too. And then also your markets are always changing. We're in 8 markets in 3 states.
Yeah.
Everyone is so unique. So you have to be able to give a lot of autonomy and allow your markets to have the best voice for what is the right thing for the markets. And luckily, our company is really good at doing that and letting us, as the leaders of the markets, be authentic to who we are.
Yeah, and it seems that there is, they provide a good foundation and a structure, but then you have a solid ground to just exercise and do whatever you need to do to push forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I like what you said, about, the family starting the business and how the people kind of running the business, the leadership, their personality, how they think, how that just transpire through the organization. I do a lot of brand design. I work with, different companies, helping them with their brand. And it's amazing how just the personality and many characteristics of the leader, they immediately, you see that replicated through the whole organization.
Absolutely.
Which, sometimes is good, sometimes it's not, because, sometimes we do things that we don't realize that they're communicating something negative,
right?
Or we don't realize the impact that they're having. So even just being in meetings where you have, the owner and, 3 or 4 more people, and they're just waiting for that person to give their opinion, and then they validate that. So it's like, wow, this thing is. So I think that even gives people more responsibility to understand that, who you are as a person, and, when you're running a business. It's important because the implications are huge.
Right.
At the end of the day, you'll see that in the marketplace when they're doing what you're doing or thinking the way you're thinking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest the biggest challenge your clients are facing today?
So I think the biggest challenge that our customers are facing today is the speed and agility in an industry that's not always that keen at, I don't want to say speed and agility, but our customers, I think every customer in every industry, but the industries that we serve,
yes,
which is a lot of industries, they want things fast. And this idea that Amazon can deliver. I ordered something on Amazon the other day in the morning, and it delivered at my house by the time I got home.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that is the world that we live in today, and that there's business models that are adapting and changing to give that. And I think what our industry is really looking at right now is, how do we get there? How do we get to the point where we can move that quickly?
Yeah.
I think the speed of business has accelerated so quickly, and what all customers are looking for is, how do I need to furnish my building. I need to get it done. I need to design it. I want to see what it looks like. I want you to order it, and then I want it to be able to be here like tomorrow. Yeah. And this industry is trying to figure out how to adapt to that.
Yeah.
And so, but that's a challenge for our customers also, because if you think about the speed of how business is changing, companies that 2 years ago, there's a lot of, the fintech industry is a really interesting industry to watch here in our market. And I mean, that industry's been around, but a lot of financial institutions have really become technology companies.
Yes.
And so their space and in the interior space has drastically to change, because those type of workers and the way that they're used to getting their work done every day inside of the physical space they work in is very, very different than the financial or workers that were doing this 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So the challenge for customers is, how do you do that? Yes. How do I be agile, and how do I be nimble? Because I don't know what my business is going to look like in 2 to 5 years. And I think this industry used to be that you could go in and you could furnish your space and you could do a build out, and it would be great for 10 years. I mean, I think today, can you even think that far out?
Sure.
So I think the challenge for our customers is, how do we get partners like us, sitting at the table earlier and thinking through all those scenarios 2, 5, 10 years down the road, and supporting them with the right types of solutions that give them that agility to get there.
Yeah. So thinking about the fact that things are not going to slow down, like the people are going to want it quicker and quicker. How far is that going to go? What do you think is the future of the industry? Thinking about that acceleration, like it's going to get, more more requirements, faster. What's going to happen with the industry once you get to a point where, production and procuring the material is not going to be able to, supply the needs of the owners?
God, we don't have enough time, Jack. I think, again, what do I think the future of that looks like? There's a lot of conversation, I think, in the industry about that. And I feel like there's got to be some consolidation in the industry. And I think there's probably likely some players that may surprise everyone and come in and find a different model. And I think there's a lot of exploration by, I think, all of your furniture manufacturers right now, but also just other partners that maybe are on the peripheral of the industry.
Yeah.
And so I think that, you've got to come up with a model that allows things to happen quicker. And I think that one of there's a lot of technology that's being experimented with how do you deliver design quicker. And, I think that's the same thing. You probably hear some of those things in the architecture field is, what are those models that you can plug in some information and then it spits out these, hey, this is what you need over here, this beautiful floor plan. And then, so that accelerates the process. So I'm not sure if you can manufacture any quicker than some of the manufacturers do today. Maybe, and definitely some room for some efficiency. But I think that all that process that leads up to that is probably where the opportunities to make it faster are.
Yeah.
So the future of the industry is got to be figuring out how to do all of those things, still achieve wonderful solutions. Because again, the customer, you got to do what's right for the customer.
Sure.
And I think that sometimes that gets lost. So, but if you can figure out how to speed all that up and have all your partners sitting down together sooner and you get there quicker, then everybody wins.
Yes, and I guess once the customer requirements change, you need to respond to that, because the basic setup of a typical office worldwide, it's a table with a chair. Right, and that was created.
It's all I have.
Yeah, well, and
I don't even have an office.
It's been the same for years.
Right.
Since look at old pictures.
It's the same.
1800s. It's a table and a chair. Now they just look nicer and nicer materials.
Right.
But the setup
now
is
you
still,
can stand up.
Yes.
Or sit down.
Yeah, there are many things. But I guess that was created. You had to write down things, and then you have a typewriter, and now you have computers. But once we get to a point where people don't use computers or use them in a very different way,
right?
Now you don't need that table and you don't need that chair.
No.
So what are you gonna provide?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that question, because I think a lot of what's going on in the industry right now too is that people work differently.
Yeah.
And yes, we still need a table, we still need a chair, but for a certain type of work, there's a lot of things I do in the day.
Yeah.
In fact, it's kind of, and you know this about me, but my office, if you want to call it that, is a huddle room.
Yes.
And that is a space that is open to all, because if someone needs to go in and I need to put my head down and I need to do a certain type of work and close a door, why should I be the only one that has that?
Sure.
Anybody can have that.
Yeah.
And so, but back to all the things that I did to support the way I work and the way that people work, and how do customers work? You got to get to that. What is it that you do, and what are those transactions between people that happen in any given day or throughout the day that you need to support that? It's not always a table and a chair.
Yeah.
These days, it's a lot of things. I am I can be a mobile worker. I spend most of my day walking around and doing a variety of things. A lot of, I would say, 10 to 15-minute conversations that are important.
Yes.
But I'm rarely sitting at my table in my chair to do that. So all those other things that need to happen inside of a workplace and those surroundings that support that are really important.
Cool. How do you think the power of design impacts who you are and what you do?
Okay, I got a great quote for you. I think the power of design is really a major piece of kind of life. And it's, you and I were talking earlier about simple but significant. And to me, the removing friction in life and how design has a power is, how do you remove friction? And if you can think of all those great things some of them are really, really simple things that have removed friction in life. And where, and so I think about design and how it has an impact on me. And I've really learned a lot being in this industry, because I can't tell you why always that the design to me feels right.
Yeah.
But I can see it and I feel it.
You can feel it.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
And so, when you walk into certain spaces or even just, again, back to that removing friction piece is I know like those little bitty things that are great design.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, that's it. So simple is better, and that's but significant.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. Sometimes we try to, especially when you're a designer or an architect, we're trying to rationalize the space and the design and say, oh, this is like this, and kind of explain everything. But it's all about feeling. I think even if you get, a kid or, children in a space and they feel great, and they love it and it's fun, then that's great design. You don't need to explain that. It just feels good.
Feels good.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
So there's, I think that for like those surroundings, along with the, so that you were talking about architecture, great architecture is a void.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us what you mean by that, Jack?
So what I was saying is that I think architecture is void space. So first of all, I think the concept of architecture lives in humans' brain. Architecture is a human experience in space. If you have space with no humans, that's nothing. If you create a great building and nobody goes there, that's not architecture. It's a human experiencing that space with their senses. So when you look at humans, when we're moving through space, we move through an empty space. So the basic definition of space is just this very open, infinite area with no definition. So when we create architecture, which is defined, is giving that undefined space, we're giving it a defined characteristics for humans to perform certain activity, and then we give it some characteristics that create a feeling for those humans. So I think I see, creating architecture is like taking a clay and shaping that clay, which is in reality void, and you're carving out and you're developing this experience based on what you want for them, and created these kind of passages and places, and communicating with the exteriors. Then you think about light, so you can go very detailed as far as defining that. So yeah, I think you cannot see architecture.
And I think that design is again, it is solving for something that and it's got to be simple and significant, and then that's the impact that you feel.
Yeah, I said that it's got to be functional and beautiful.
Yeah. So
good. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about?
I just want to say thank you, Jack. I love sitting down and talking with you, and I know we shared that we have that futuristic view, which sometimes can get us both in trouble. But you and I could probably sit here and talk for hours. So I thank you for.
No, thank you for your time, and also wanna take the opportunity. I thank you for your friendship, and you have been a blessing to my life, to my business, to my family, and I just want to thank you for that and let you know that I'm here for you.
Well, thank you, and it's mutual. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Power of Design podcast. Remember to rate and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Find out more about Jack and Osa Studio at osastudio.com and follow us on Instagram at the Power of Design podcast. Thank you.